morning. Welcome. My name is Myra Turchiano, and I am the Community Outreach Supervisor for the Crossroad Library Learning Center. And I'm very excited today to be welcoming Nicholas A. Brown and Rebecca Oxley. I'm sorry, I apologize for mispronouncing that. And we are here today to discuss, or they're going to be presenting their Orgullo LGBT en el Condado de Prince George, Maryland. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Nicholas and Rebecca take over. But before we move on, if you need translations, please, or interpretations, please select the icon of the globe at the bottom where it says interpretation and select your language preference. And we will make sure that you are able to listen in the appropriate language that as you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mayra and Veronica and everyone at Seguimos, Creando, Enlaces for welcoming us from the East Coast to be a part of the community today. And congratulations on the 10 years of this wonderful gathering. We know it's had a tremendous impact on our work nationally and even internationally, of course, with the partnerships that exist with folks in Mexico. So thank you for the opportunity, and welcome to my colleague, Rebecca, as well. Thank you for joining us, Rebecca.
Hi.
I'm going to get our screen share going here, and then we'll dive in. We're super excited to talk to you about this work that we've been doing here in Prince George's County. So I have a different role from Rebecca. Rebecca is a leader of one of our branches, and she can tell you a bit more about that. But I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Communication and Outreach, which is corporate speak in our library for Deputy Director over communications, fundraising, programs, outreach, digital, and government relations. And Rebecca can tell you more about the work that she does at the library.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca Oxley. My pronouns are she and they. Oh, sorry about that. I am the librarian 3 at the Greenbelt Branch Library for Prince George's County Memorial Library System in Maryland. I do work on the library's LGBTQ plus work team. I also manage our pop-up location at the space, which is nearby. And I helped co-found the Butterfly Project, which connects BIPOC trans women with library and community resources and services.
Awesome. Picture in the middle is, if you couldn't tell, it's actually the both of us in our outreach vehicle at the Capitol Pride Parade that happened last year, which was a vehicle parade because of COVID. But it was the first time Prince George's County Memorial Library System was in the nation's capital's Pride Parade, which is pretty cool. So our learning outcomes today are, 1, to understand the importance of intentional marketing, outreach, and programming to honor Hispanic and Latin LGBTQ plus identity. And the second one focuses on expanding programs and services for this community group. And then the last one focuses on establishing strategies for you to understand the needs of this community, which are very diverse and can differ greatly depending on your geographic location. Even within our one community at large, we serve a huge spread of geographic area that spans from urban to rural, and most of it is suburban, but we do have horse farms and folks that do rodeo in the southeast part of the county, and along DC, which is kind of the diagonal outline that you see there, the diamond of DC. You can have 1 foot in DC and 1 foot in our county, and it's all the same. It's an urban, thriving, awesome community. It's a lot to life here. We serve just under 1 million people in our county. Can you all hear me okay? I know my internet's a little glitchy. Okay, great. We serve just under 1 million people. We are a majority Black and Latin county, which not many places in this country can say, and we are super thrilled that this is the community that we're able to serve. We also have about 23% of our population are immigrants, and we have 19 branch libraries, operate the library at the County Correction Center. And there's some other key indicators down at the bottom of the screen that give a sense of some of the issues that we face in our community. Many people may have heard of Prince George's County as the quote unquote wealthiest Black county or community in the country. There are some bits of truth to that, but we find that to be a very problematic description because that moniker basically covers up the fact that there is extreme socioeconomic disparities throughout our county for every community group, not just one race. So it's very important that we kind of contextualize that kind of popular notion. About 2/3 of our kids in the public schools are on free and reduced lunch. And that gives you an indication that there's very high poverty level in much of the county. Our library, while this number on here for our budget looks really high in the grand scheme of things, it is very, very low for a library of our size in our region. We are, there's a big city library to our left on the map, and they have double the budget, 170 more staff, yet we serve 250,000 more people than they do. So we are an under-resourced library system, which creates a lot of challenges for us in some of the work that we're going to be talking about today. We have about 338 employees, both full-time and part-time. The foundation for all of our work with serving the LGBTQ plus community and then targeting different sub-communities within that group is really trying to respond and anticipate the needs of the communities we're serving. At the base level, we are information professionals, and we take that very seriously. That might look like providing access to books and collection materials, but that also might look like us making sure that customers can come to us and get connected with the resources that they need for public health services, for HIV testing, for immigration services, for legal support, for expungement clinics. The whole range of community needs is something that we help our community on. And there are 5 focus areas to our work that you see here on the right of the screen: healthy living, inclusion, creativity, literacy and learning, and personal achievement. Inclusion is, of course, a filter that we apply to everything. Our library is very serious about diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism. We've always been very serious about that as a library. It's not to say that we are perfect in any way, shape, or form, but we are a library that does affirm that Black lives matter, that Black trans lives matter, that immigrant lives and rights matter, and on and on. And we're very vocal about that fact. We're fortunate in that we have a board and a county government in a community that supports a very proactive stance when it comes to human rights as a public organization. So the work that we're going to be talking about today is really focused under the inclusion focus area, and you can see a bit more about that here. Inclusion applies to everything, right? You know, this is about what is the signage when someone approaches our building? What is the communications language that we're using to tell people that our libraries are open or closed? It can't just be in English anymore. When someone walks up to our building, we want them to know that this is a welcoming space for you, no matter where you are in life, no matter your cultural background, identity, political beliefs. We're here to support you. Now, where we differentiate from some other libraries that have different political pressures is that we are 100% understanding that our strategic plan drives us to be very intentional with curating what we do inside our spaces and in our virtual spaces. So our book displays, our collections displays, our programming, our signage in terms of cultural representation. We will not shy away from putting out any kind of controversial topic that, you know, everything that's being banned right now across the country is front and center in our libraries. And we have been very fortunate that we haven't been challenged too dramatically on that so far. The heritage groups that we really focus on as a library year round. Did I freeze again? Am I back now? Cool.
You are back.
Okay, yeah, we have network issues. I apologize, everyone. So these are the cultural areas that we focus on, and we are really intentional as a library at every level of the library to say that we don't just tokenize things and put it into a Heritage Month. That's a great time to add some extra energy to things, but this is about year-round programming, content, collections, recruitment of staff, top to bottom in our organization, and we really believe strongly in this work. And we do have inequities with how we express this just because of different expertises in-house, and we're taking things one step at a time to incrementally make sure that everyone who we serve feels strongly represented in our library's work. Okay, I'm going to shift over to Rebecca real quick. And she's going to give you some information about how we serve the LGBTQ plus community broadly before we dive into the specifics.
So, you know, as Nick mentioned, we have teams that actually work behind these different heritage initiatives. So yes, it's not just sort of showing up for 1 month of the year. We have work teams that involve library staff from all levels of our organization that meet monthly or sometimes weekly, depending on how urgent what we're getting done is, to work on programming, to advise on marketing, to talk about training, to make collection development suggestions, and primarily just to make sure that not only are we uplifting and celebrating the intersectional parts of our community, but that we're doing it all year round. And so just to briefly let you know how our team got started, we had a champion, Teresa Miller, who noticed that our library system a few years ago was not doing anything for the LGBTQ plus community. There were literally a couple of rainbow story times that had once happened, and we weren't getting pushback, certainly, but we weren't necessarily being asked to come to the table. And so we put together a team, and we are really just going from 0 to 60. We have gone from doing very little at all to making Pride a real destination at the library, not just in June, but also in October for LGBTQ History Month. And what we call Pride 365, which is the fact that we know that our LGBTQ plus community, and certainly our intersectional LGBTQ plus Latinidad, definitely need us all year round. We can't just wait for specific months. The community was obviously not really being served, which is what happens too often here. Since we are directly adjacent to DC and just a skip away from Baltimore, we found that too often the community, the LGBTQ plus community, was not really visible, was not heard, and they were often being referred to Baltimore or DC when they needed services and resources, not right here in Prince George's County where we live and work. And so our team really set about to change that. Of course, the pandemic kind of threw a monkey wrench into our first round of in-person programming. So we quickly pivoted to a digital environment, which you can find almost all of our programming in our archives on our YouTube page. If you just search LGBTQ, a lot of it comes up. And we also did a lot to train staff. So we had a couple of staff trainings. They were not mandatory. And what we found was that all the queer kids were the only ones showing up. It was all the people who didn't need the training necessarily who were coming to this training. And we all started talking to each other. And so our library system did a really progressive thing, which was to hire Bright Baltimore, who is a LGBTQ plus scholar and activist, to do a mandatory training that every single staff member that works for our library system, including our buildings and grounds folks, everybody had to take this training. And Pride then became something that, yes, this is an expectation, the same way that Hispanic Heritage Month or Black History Month is something that your branch needs to embrace in a meaningful way. Pride became kind of similar. We also created a toolkit as a team because we really wanted particularly, we wanted to shine light on smaller demographics, such as our trans and non-binary folks that work for the library system that we often do not see.
One of the things that I would like to highlight before we keep going any further, and this headline is evocative of this topic. We have a very large community of Black and Latin and Hispanic sex workers and also transgender folks who live in our community and are wonderful, thriving members of our community. And unfortunately, the violence that is directed against trans women of color in particular is very present in our community. And basically what one of the things that happens, and Rebecca will talk a lot more about this when she talks about the Butterfly Project, is that there's law enforcement that kind of pushes communities back and forth across the border of DC and Prince George's County so that services and response are different. And unfortunately, we've seen a tragic number of murders of trans women of color in our community in the last few years. And because the broader LGBTQ plus community is so focused on DC in this metropolitan area, these issues that are viewed as DC issues are actually happening more so in some of the neighboring jurisdictions, but those neighboring jurisdictions don't have the resources that DC as a city has for supporting it and being proactive around this. So this is kind of some of the conditions and the flashpoints that have been going on. We've also, thank you, Veronica. We've also been slow to approach proactive work around LGBTQ plus programming and outreach historically. And the kind of explanation that has been given over the years, just as a common thing that is totally ridiculous and not based on fact or anything, is that we have a county that has a huge amount of mega religious communities that have a wide range of views, and we can't touch certain issues because it's going to create fallout because of that heavy duty religious presence. We have found in the last 3 years, as we made progress in this, that we're not getting pushback from any of those religious communities. And we are also, in fact, getting support from institutions in those faith-based communities, whether it's around this issue or food insecurity, digital equity, and many other topics as well. This is a cover of the staff toolkit that Rebecca was mentioning, and you're welcome to check that out with the QR code on screen or also using that URL, and feel free to share that around with whoever would benefit from it. And we do really encourage all of your libraries to think about this. If you don't have something similar, it's a really important thing to do, and it's a really important process for your team to go through. What are the different topics that we need to think about and come to consensus on as a staff, so that we're auditing our collection, so that our cataloging terminology and our metadata are living up to the values that we put forward in programming and outreach and communications. And this all, there's specific language in here, even around how we address language when we refer to people in subgroups of the LGBTQ plus community and different ethnic backgrounds as well. The other thing about our county population with the LGBTQ plus community specifically is it tracks to how we address Hispanic and Latin outreach and services more broadly. We need to understand the makeup of the national origin of the Hispanic and Latin people who live here. So we know that we have a vast majority of our residents who are Spanish speaking or Hispanic or Latin background are from Central America. The majority of those are from El Salvador. We have folks from Honduras, from Mexico, Guatemala, and then we have some folks from Colombia, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, and then of course into South America. But that cultural context and the fact that we are a heavy immigrant and refugee destination means that we need to be prepared to tailor everything that we're doing to serve all of those folks, but to then address the equity that's needed when we know we're getting LGBTQ plus refugees from Honduras, for example, where there is an insane amount of violence and murders against members of the LGBTQ plus community, that to the point where it's like one of the worst examples globally of violence that is thankfully now getting addressed in the new political administration there. But that's kind of the cultural awareness that we must bring to this work when we go serve anyone at the individual level or at the community level, and that our staff in our branches and in our communications and outreach teams are really sensitive to. And we also have a lot of strong partnerships that help keep us informed. Perfect segue. Rebecca, do you want to chat about any of the partnerships on here that you've been involved in, and then I can cover the rest of them?
Sure. I mean, one of the most important partnerships we made was with the LGBTQ Dignity Project. There are many wonderful organizations regionally and nationally, and Prince George's County didn't have any of them. We didn't have a PFLAG chapter, nothing. So the LGBTQ Dignity Project is a grassroots, queer-founded nonprofit, probably the only still nonprofit that's directed specifically at this community within our county. I was lucky enough to start working with them. I now sit on their executive board. And as we started growing the very first Pride events within our county, within the library system, or just in partnership with the library system, We were able to pick up really wonderful partners along the way. One of the nice things about the pandemic was that you're able to attend more meetings than you normally would be able to or be invited to. And so I was attending a meeting that happened to have a lot of really amazing stakeholders and leaders and talking about the Butterfly Project. And that is how things really took off. And we started to have, we went from the little library program that could to being a focal point for wraparound services.
A couple of the other partnerships on here that I'd just like to highlight is the Office of Human Rights, which is our main programming partner for kind of the adult lifelong learning side of programs. So author events, discussion groups, etc. On the bottom right corner is the logo for Terps for Change, which is students at the University of Maryland and their LGBTQ group, which has given us support on programming, especially around youth mentorship for high school students. And there's a whole range of services and programs that we've done with the folks on this screen over the course of the past couple of years and planned for this year. I see there's some questions about the link, and I'll get you a new link as soon as Rebecca is doing her next segment. And thank you for anyone who's been able to help on that. Okay. These are a few examples of some of the programs that we've done specifically for the LGBTQ Hispanic community, both presented in English or presented in Spanish or presented bilingually with different accessibility features. On the left was a Know Your Rights session that was focused on the immigration side of things, specifically for trans folks who have recently come to the United States and to our county. On the right is a series that we have for teens that's presented in English, but one of the programs focused on our partnership with the Latin American Youth Center and Maryland Multicultural Youth Center, which is based in DC and also here in our county, which does a lot of the services for LGBTQ Hispanic youth. So we had them on for a program specific for the broader teen community. Let's see if it'll let me switch to the next slide. And then we had a wonderful program during the first couple years of the pandemic, hosted by former colleague Vilma Sandoval-Sal, called Café a las Cuatro. And this was a weekly program to showcase different community resources and programs with different providers. And this series had appearances by Casa Ruby and Latin American Youth Center and various others, focusing on the adult audience, presented fully in Spanish. And over on the right side is a link to one of our staff programs. Our staff have done heroic, amazing, creative things with programming virtually, and we continue to do virtual programs even as we've resumed in-person programs. But this was a really cool program on Teen Readers Advisory focused on Latinx comics as part of our Hispanic Heritage Celebration last year. So if you want to check out these videos, they're all on our YouTube, and there's more content there as well, but the links are embedded here in the slide deck if you access it that way. One of the things that we are really focused on with the way that we approach the programming partnerships broadly, but also hyper specifically to Hispanic LGBTQ plus outreach, is what I've kind of set up as a collaborative programming life cycle. We have an idea, then we implement, then we deal with feedback and assessment, then we strengthen and collaborate on moving forward with that content, refine priorities, and then we keep at it. And the way that we have evolved our programming for LGBTQ plus Hispanic and Latin folks is really been reflective of this. In the first year in 2020, we did amazing things. And then we said, okay, there are some things that we didn't hit. Like we needed to do more for LGBTQ plus Afro-Latin folks very specifically. So how did we address that in 21 and how are we going to address that in 22? And that's just a quick little example there. But we really believe in this as incremental work and moving the needle forward. And there's always opportunity to do things better and differently, and it's important to recognize the successes and the progress as we go. So an incremental approach is really meaningful for us. Switching over to marketing briefly, and then Rebecca will close us out with the Butterfly Project. This is an example of how we've made progress on the marketing and communications front. We, in 2020, had a very basic Pride campaign. We established a logo version of our logo with the Pride colors, which was important for us to do. And then in year 2, we wanted it to be a little more reflective of the vibe of our programs and our library as a community. So it's a little bit influenced by street art by LGBTQ plus identity as having to participate in protest movements for advancing civil rights and such. And then as we saw the first round of those graphics last year, we said, okay, wait a second. We now need to honor the fact that as a communications team, we have become intentional about making everything that we can bilingual within a list of how we prioritize that. But adding Spanish language graphics and bilingual graphics for how we were addressing Pride was an important and imperative thing for us to do at that point, because we had been doing all this programming targeting the community so that we could better serve them. And this has been, at the very least, very meaningful for us as a library system to be proudly recognizing and celebrating Pride and LGBTQ plus identity, not just for English speakers, but recognizing that there are nuances and cultural differences that we need to honor and recognize and support in the Spanish-speaking community specifically, and in the community with Hispanic and Latin background. Another thing that was really important as part of this work more broadly was in our latest style guide for the library, we actually incorporated Spanish language guidelines, Spanish branding guidelines. We have a Spanish version of our logo as well. And one thing that's become very important for us that we will get into after Rebecca talks about the Butterfly Project is the way that we try and honor our principles for gender inclusive language in English in Spanish, given that it's a gendered language. And there are choices that we make as a communications team to try and be more inclusive on the Spanish side, even if it's sometimes more awkward and not how things might normally be said. Around talking about families and traditional roles in the families, like that's not acceptable to us in English, so we cannot accept that in Spanish. And that is the responsibility and mandate from our communications team that goes out to the whole library. We'll put a link for the style guide in the chat as Rebecca covers the Butterfly Project.
Thank you, Nick. This project is very dear to my heart. I don't want to take any time away from our question and answer, so I will try to give just a broad wraparound of this. So as Nick mentioned, the community has been rocked by the murders of 3 very young Black trans women, 2 of whom were sex workers, and they tragically died within blocks of some of our library systems and did go to some of our branches. And so I partnered with a local Black trans woman who is an advocate. And we started an idea of, well, what do these folks need? Okay, so they need workforce development. They need resume help, mock interviews, how to use computer, how to manage email, and particularly access to gender affirming clothing that is suitable for the interview process, so that if people chose to do something other than sex work, then they would have a level playing field. And so the Butterfly Project was born. Essentially, we do outreach to a very targeted part of the population. As you can see from the flyer on the right-hand side. And it essentially is a series of one-on-one appointments with trained and dedicated staff. And we have a variety of community partners that provide much of the extra things that we need. We hold a luncheon once a month, so that because we know that they are, this population is often food insecure as well. So we provide a delicious, healthy meal from a local caterer. And we invite, it actually says on our event site, sex workers very welcome, please bring a friend. So that is a chance to establish some to offer them in terms of workforce development. We work with Grace's Boutique, which is a faith-based free boutique for homeless people in general, people who are unhoused, and they provide beautiful clothing, bags, shoes, jewelry, even brand new underwear and socks to our participants. And we also have been partnering with the state's attorney's office, working with their LGBTQ task force, as well as the Prince George's County Police Department So we are also reaching out to our county correction center, because although sex work is generally not prosecuted in our jurisdiction, that is the choice the state's attorney has made, which we fully support. But these women do often get picked up for other charges. And so we want to make sure that wherever they go, they see that we are there seeing them and creating meaningful space for them. So the graphic on the right is actually what we go up and down Eastern Avenue, where we know these women often work. And we put them up on telephone poles. Pretty soon, when COVID restrictions allow us to, we will be doing ride-alongs with the police from midnight to 3 a.m. so that we can actually speak to these young women directly. Through the police department partnership, we've learned that there is a population of trans Latinas on the other side of the county who could potentially benefit from that. So that is our next step, is expansion. We have a lot of funding that gets funneled through our foundation. Some of it is raised through the community and through Karen. And a good portion of it is provided by the library system, particularly for our lunches.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca and Nicholas. Like you said, I'm in so much awe of all the work, the amazing work that you're all doing. And from all the questions and the chats, conversations, it seems like I'm not alone in being in awe of all the amazing work you're doing. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Q&A portion of this session. So we're going to go ahead and so we have Nicholas and Rebecca. We have Carlos, who asked the question, how do you manage text translations for signage, flyers, website, etc.? Do you use a company or assign bilingual library staff to do the work?
Yes, this is a challenging and moving target in our library. Back in the day, like 5 years ago, we had some folks in branches who would do translations, but it wasn't coordinated at all. The communications team at that point was only hiring out translation services, which was better than nothing, but there were a lot of issues that came with that because we didn't have an in-house style guide for our Spanish translations at that time. About 4 years ago, our library was successful in getting some additional funding to bring staff into the central administration to support English language learner programs and outreach specifically, including language translation support. And then when I arrived, while language wasn't a part of my job, I guess the library got lucky with that one because I was able to bring this kind of my own experience with Spanish language, but add priority and urgency to this in terms of how we were staffing moving forward. We do not have a budget that supports our ability to really do any big translation work that is paid outside of our staff. So we have staff in central administration. There are 4 of us now that contribute to translations, with the communications team being the for pay, who contribute to both. Did I cut out? I bet. But I'm back now. We have folks in the branches who receive a language pay differential, both for the work that they do orally at the branches and in outreach, and for any contributions to translation work. We're coming up with a new structure now so that everyone who's participating in written translation, there's a bit more structure to that so that we're able to add capacity, but also so that you can come in and work on it for a month as part of your job, and then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year. And then the communications team just handles kind of the review and the editing part of it. We just hired a brand new communications specialist who is bilingual English Spanish. She's wonderful. Her name is Silvana. She used to be a reporter and producer both for Telemundo and Univision locally, and she runs a media organization called Zoom Latino. So we've had a lot of staffing challenges and turnover during COVID especially, but we're now ready to kind of scale this thing up with more branch support. It's really important for us to do as much as we can in Spanish, but our bandwidth has been really limited, and then not having any funding to do outside translations limits it even more. But it has come down to management prioritizing this as a requirement in hiring. And the next step for us as a library is that we need to require that there are Spanish speakers at every location. Right now, the Spanish speakers in the branches are primarily in the neighborhoods where there's majorities Hispanic and Latin community. And that's great. That's part of our incremental progress towards doing better for serving the community. But long term, it's got to be equitable. There's got to be access at every branch, and it can't be dependent on one person who's not on sick leave for the day kind of deal. It's got to be how we approach everything. So we are an example of a library that has basically no money for translation services. And I know a lot of libraries spend a lot of budget on that. We don't have support from our local government on that because we're a separate entity. We're actually an independent nonprofit here in Maryland. And we, through state law, we serve the county and they are our primary funder. The county has resources for translation, but we don't get to use them for free, which is tricky.
Awesome. Like you said, the more I hear, the more amazed I am. And I think everybody seems to be on the same page because they're all having tons of questions regarding this. So thank you, Nicholas, for going in depth as far as the translation process. So we do have Abril Juana. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And her question is, my library has had lots of issues with people being prejudiced with the little we try to do. I am working to create a more LGBTQ programming, but how should I deal with the backlash from patrons and from higher up board members?
Rebecca, do you want to chime in on that from your perspective, and then I can kind of close it out?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I have heard from librarians around the country. So we certainly want to put out the caveat that we know that we are sort of in library heaven, as we call it here in Maryland, and that Prince George's County overall is very progressive, even though it has traditional values. And we recognize that not everybody has that luxury. So I just want to put that out there. I would say that getting your library system to adopt a general message of inclusion as part of its mission statement is really important, so that if somebody comes to my Rainbow Storytime and has some kind of an objection, that I have an elevator speech where I can say, well, our library supports diversity and inclusion. We recognize that there are many different types of families, and we want to make sure that everyone is represented. I think that starting off with story times that are often geared towards families and different types of families, or how love makes a family, is a great way to start getting those ideas into your community. Certainly displays. And I would think that, look for your champions. Try to find others who think like you within your library system or in your community, and try to forge partnerships and collaboration, so that if you are getting pushback from your customers, or even unfortunately from your higher ups, your leadership or your board, you will have more than just one voice. Also, don't get discouraged. It's going to happen. So don't get disappointed by any setbacks, because if you are the trailblazer, then that means that you are blazing the trail. So, just don't give up.
And just one thing to add on to that, that's really important is when I was in a large federal library, to remain nameless, previously in my career, and the administration was not necessarily LGBTQ plus friendly back in the day when there was a Reagan appointee in charge of things, and to the point where the LGBT was removed from event listings for that type of reality. If you're someone that has the energy and the fortitude to keep pushing and to keep moving forward, incremental progress is really essential. Apologies, I cut out. But also, it's about pushing the envelope over time and having a network and an internal community. And if you're in a library where it's just you and another person trying to make progress, you are changing people's lives, and try and remember that when it really is difficult. But just keep taking those baby steps, because at that federal institution that I used to be at, people had been taking those baby steps and pushing the envelope since the 80s and since the early 90s, when a staff association was started. And just in 20 years, that institution went from nothing to institution-wide Pride pop-up exhibit, and having the cast of Queer Eye there, and actually promoting its LGBTQ plus archival collections. And the progress is possible, but unfortunately in the situations where you have more resistance, it's going to need to be more incremental, and that's okay. That's going to get you to where you want to be. And each step can have, just creating a welcoming environment that impacts one person you've just changed a life, and that's going to have a ripple effect, and people are going to take notice of that. So celebrate the progress that you are able to make in that process.
Thank you, Rebecca, Nicholas. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing, because I think sometimes it's kind of contextualizing what libraries can do to support their communities beyond just book and, and some services within the library walls. I do have an anonymous question. I think it goes to the core of what the work that you're doing. And so either for Nicholas or Rebecca. So the question is, I am a trans person, and I think the work of flyering being done where trans workers frequent is awesome, and to provide material support, food, clothes, job resources. I question how a partnership with police will affect good faith with potential LGBTQ plus patrons, as we know that historically and present day police are on the opposite side of pride, protest, and Black Lives Matter movement. How was that partnership decided?
That's a really excellent question, and I'm really excited that somebody would ask about that. I would say that for us, again, we have a state's attorney that is declining to prosecute sex work, but too often around the country that is not the case. We have particularly BIPOC trans sex workers are meeting violence at the hands of police. So that may not be the right fit for your library. For us, we were lucky that we had kind of an inroad there. My partner, Karen Holmes, the activist I talked about, who is my partner on the Butterfly Project, she herself is a decorated military veteran, and she does trainings for the police to talk about trans issues. So she already had this partnership with the police. She was already doing these ride-alongs and talking to these young women on the street, and doing whatever she could to try and figure out what it was that they needed. So for us, it was a natural fit. We don't work with just any cop. We specifically have contacts that we reach out to. Particularly that can look some kind of way, but I think the most important thing is building the trust, actively creating space that is meaningful for BIPOC trans women, sex workers or not, and listening to what Black trans women tell us and believing them. I also do want to quickly address a question that was there, what somebody asked about the Butterfly Project resource guide. The resource guide, which I believe we had put the link in the chat, was our first step to just trying to help people make sense of what is available to you here in Prince George's County. And we do have a great button called Su Biblioteca. And because as we know, most library websites worth their salt have a translation button of some kind where you can pick your language. We know that our Spanish speakers are such a huge part of our community that we made a very clear button up at the top, Su Biblioteca. And if you click it, you automatically are routed to the Spanish translation of our website, and that includes the Butterfly Project's page.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Nicholas. And I think at this time we have come to the end of our time, but I really want to thank you. And I know I shared this earlier with you that I'm fanning out over the work that you're doing. And as Rebecca mentioned, this is almost like library heaven. So I'm ready to go to heaven. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate you, your time, and the work that you're doing. And there is so much that you can teach us and we can learn from you. So thank you so much, and we will see you again.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.